Hey everybody, welcome to your horoscopes for this week. These are the horoscopes for the week ending 9/26/2015, and it's kind of a little bit of a crazy week, so we're just going to go ahead and get right to it and find out who's going to be dealing with the craziness the most. And we're going to start, as we always do, with Aries. Definitely going to be feeling some craziness this week, Rams, as this T-squared position between Mercury and Uranus and Pluto is very difficult. It really makes things feel stagnant, and for cardinal signs, this is a problem, as cardinal signs really like to move and get things done. So this aspect is going to make you sort of feel like you can't move forward when it comes to either your goals or some things that you've been trying to get going for a while and it just doesn't seem to be working. Now, Pluto does go direct at some point this week, which is going to take some of the sting off of this aspect, and it won't be 3 planets all in retrograde. And of course, with Mercury and in retrograde being a part of this aspect, you're going to want to be aware of communication breakdowns because they're definitely going to happen. But at the same time, Uranus is trine with Venus, reminds you to keep your eye on the prize. This is about your goals. This is about what you want to do. And it has nothing to do with the frustrations that everybody else is putting out there. So why take them? This week and this aspect is all about avoiding the frustrations and not taking on other people's frustrations and making them personal obstacles for yourself. Let them do whatever they're going to do. If they're supposed to be helping you out with this and they're obviously not helping out, let them go and find somebody who is going to take the job and actually take it seriously. But complaining about it's just not going to work. It's actually going to make you dead in the water. And above all this week, if it feels like you are moving towards craziness and you can't figure out how to avoid it, next week we kick off with a full moon in Aries, and it's going to be a super moon, and it's going to also be a lunar eclipse. So the craziness is there. It's going to be there, but it's up to you to make sure that it doesn't get in the way of what you need to do. So you guys have a great week with that. Taurus, when it comes to your personal responsibilities this week, especially responsibilities that involve other people, it can be tricky when you're ready to get things done and the other people are unfortunately not ready or willing to help out with that. And especially if it's partially their responsibility as well, it can be very, very difficult. And it feels the same either way, whether they're not ready or they're just plain old unwilling to help out. But at the same time, this week, the lesson here in this is really about whether or not you need these people. Granted, this may be part of their responsibility, or maybe they did promise to help you out with something that's a personal goal of yours. But the truth is, if they're not there to help you out, that's when it comes back to you. What are you going to do about this situation? Traditionally, a lot of people would say, well, that person's not here, so I'm just not going to do it. And you wind up punishing yourself because you're not getting done what you need to get done. But this week, it's time to take a new look at that situation and come up with a better solution for that situation. Of course, you can't control everybody else, and you can't control what everybody else is going to do. You shouldn't even really try, to be honest with you. But at the same time, it's all about us in this particular situation. So when you find yourself in this position, are you going to say, well, they're not here, so I couldn't do it? Or are you going to take it up yourself and do as much as you possibly can yourself? You never know. You may push yourself to limits you didn't even know that you had. And the part of fortune does come into your sign towards the end of the week to bring that help in. The beautiful thing about this is, rather than going to, well, I already started, it's too late, you can go to, well, I already started, so we don't have very much left to do. Think about that for a minute. You can turn anything into something that's positive and something that works for you on a growth level. So this week, it's time for you guys to shine, and if you have to shine by yourself, so be it, because that means that nobody else is there to steal your thunder. So you guys have a great week with that. Gemini, it's all about relationships for you Geminis this week, and it's really all about spending some time with those relationships that you've already built. In life, we get through the hustle and the bustle and the need to take care of the responsibilities, and these people just sort of become the background to what you do on a day-to-day basis. And even though we're given plenty of opportunities to spend this time, we don't always take it because, especially for you Geminis, there's always something else there to focus on. This week, it really is time to focus on these relationships. Focus on these people who are really such an amazing and huge part of your success in all of your endeavors. I mean, you think about it, nothing is ever accomplished completely alone. We always have help from some people, and these people are usually the ones that are there to provide that help for you before anybody else is. So this week, rather than the responsibility and the day-to-day grind, it's time to take some opportunities to really have fun with these people. Really bond with these people. Take a look at the positive aspects of them. Take a look at the positive ways that they make you feel. I know feeling isn't something that most air signs like to do, but we have to do it. Every human being does. And even in the strain, the most strained relationships that you have, look for those positive things too. Because if you're still together in this relationship in some way, shape, or form, there's some sort of glue that's holding you together, and you'll find it in those positive aspects. You would be surprised at how much you can make changes in your relationships by just investing some time into them, and you won't be sorry. So you guys have a great week with that. Cancer, when it comes to your budget this week, it can be kind of a heavy load having to budget your money every single month, or maybe even every single week, however many times you have a tendency to make a budget throughout the month. But it really doesn't have to be the drudgeous, terrible, horrible, heavy job that it is. When it comes down to it, a lot of the times, most of us live in a world where we have to budget our money. And there's rarely anything really substantial left after all the responsibilities and the bills are paid off. And when we talk of responsibilities, we're talking food, fuel, and all that other stuff too, because those are a big important part, obviously, of our responsibilities. But this week, it really is all about taking a look at that budget and taking a look at our finances in a different way this week. For the most part in our society, money seems to be the most important thing in the world. If you don't have any money, you can't do anything actually. You can't do anything at all. And a lot of people adopt this perception in their minds, and it really makes for a really difficult and really messed up life when you can't do anything because you don't have the money to do it. This stops you from making money in order to do things. This stops you from having fun. This stops you from getting any kind of quality out of life, period. This week, it's all about changing your perceptions on that budget and looking at the things that you can do in your life that don't cost a dime. And there's so many thousands of things that you do have in your life that don't cost any money. Like your family, for example. Of course, you want to spend money on them and shower them with gifts, but really, it is the time that's more valuable than all the money in the world that you could spend. So this week is really about taking your perceptions of money and putting them in their place. Is money the most important aspect of your life? No. Let's actually take a look at what is the most important aspect of our lives and really, really enjoy it while you have it here, because there's one certainty in life: you never have anything forever, and eventually whatever it is that you do have is going to be gone. So you got to take the time now in order to make sure that in the end, when you have that little end of the time period, you don't have any regrets. The least you know that you spent all the time that you possibly can, and you didn't do it worrying about what you couldn't provide. So you guys do a good job and have a great week with that. Leo, as Mars finally moves out of your sign this week, he moves into T-squared position with Neptune and Saturn, and this is going to create some challenges when it feels like you're being plagued by old past failures in a current situation. You're trying to move forward, you've got your eye on the prize, you've got your goals, you've got all your priorities in order, but something always comes to screw it up. It's kind of the general mentality a lot of the time. But at the same time, Venus is saying no way. She's not even allowing you to have that perception, as her trine with Uranus is pretty much showing you that you've got a good solid foundation. Don't let the small stuff get in the way of what it is that you want to do. This week it's all about not allowing Mars to overtake the frustration or to cause this frustration, and these little things that keep popping in, even if there's several little things, aren't going to slow you down to progressing towards the goals that you currently have going on right now. In fact, they're only going to slow you down if you allow them to slow you down. So this week it's all about managing your emotions, managing your frustration, managing the frustration over some of the difficulties that come into this situation, and above all, stay positive. Don't let it get you down, because you never, ever, 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 never know. It might be nothing, but it's coming out as something huge. And you know, life has a way of duping you like that. Besides, how can you frown when you're wearing the crown, guys? You're Leos, so it's time to be awesome. And you guys have a great week with that. Virgo, happy birthday to the last of the Virgos born this week. The sun moves out and Mars moves in this week. And Mars is moving right smack dab into that T-squared position between Jupiter, Saturn, and Neptune this month, which is definitely going to make things a lot more sticky, because Mars energy can be used for good or for evil, really. It can really make things a lot more frustrating and a lot more aggressive, or you can use that Mars energy as the fire you light underneath your rear in order to project yourself forward and get things going, basically. You know the whole term about when people talk about hitting rock bottom? Once you hit rock bottom, the only way that you can go is up. Now this week, it's time to really take a look at how far you've come so far. You guys have done some amazing growth. There's been all kinds of different changes that you guys have been riding through and are going to continue to ride through. Are you really going to look at this as a challenge? You can, but why? The biggest challenges have the best rewards, and it takes hard work and perseverance to get anywhere that you want to go. So this week's T-square is difficult, but the good news is Jupiter's trine with Pluto says, hey, you can succeed. You can make the changes that you need to make, both inside of yourself and inside of yourself on an internal level. When it comes to past things, let these things go. And the biggest thing is start believing in you, because that will make or break where you're going to go from here. So it's all about you guys this week, and it's all about the choices that you're going to make. And the biggest one is get out of your head and get down to business, because you guys have got this. You're Virgos, dang it. So you guys have a great week with that. Libra, happy birthday, Libra. The sun is moving into Libra this week, and that means that we have some Libra birthdays to get to really quick. The first one is actually responsible for the background picture that we have here in the horoscopes. Her name is Glennis. Most of us know her as the Thunder from Down Under. I know her as the lovely Lady Libra down in Australia. I hope that you have an absolutely beautiful birthday this week, because you definitely deserve to. This lady has some fabulous energy, I just got to tell you guys. But of course, even more important than that, not saying that anybody else's birthdays aren't important, but in a hierarchy for myself, there is, of course, one birthday that is more important than anybody else's in the world, and that's Drummer Dave, of course. He is going to be celebrating his birthday right at the end of this week, just right before a full moon with the sun in opposition of the moon in Libra, just to kick off the following week. So we're going to make sure that we do all kinds of real fun stuff for Drummer Dave. And in the meantime, of course, you can always go to facebook.com/Ashes of Death and go and wish Drummer Dave a happy birthday yourself. But for everybody else that's a Libra this week, there is definitely some tension, of course, as Mercury is retrograde, and it's making those communication issues difficult for sure. Things from the past are coming back, and people from the past are coming back. We've already seen this over here at Drummer Dave's studio, where people from the past are coming back, and it can be a little bit sticky. And this T-square that Mercury is in with Pluto and Uranus is a big one, because again, for cardinal signs, we're feeling like we're anchored and can't move forward in a situation, especially when it comes to your career situations. And this Mercury retrograde really does make it feel like nobody's listening when you're talking, or you're just moved into background noise. Nobody's even paying attention when you're talking. It's really time to take a look at the words that you're using when you start to feel this way. Oftentimes things become background noise mainly because people start to hear patterns, and they hear it and hear it and hear it. So you have got to be the one that turns things around a little bit. Say things or explain things in a little bit of a different way to grab people's attention again, rather than just taking it for what it is and feeling like, well, no one's going to listen, so you might as well just not even say anything at that point. That's not really proactive. Now, the sun, as it's coming into your sign this week, is in a great position with Saturn, showing you some of these old situations, especially when it comes to career communication, showing you these old situations and showing you very clearly the pattern that has developed before this took place. And you're going to see how you can change that. So the biggest thing, of course, with looking back at these past patterns is knowing what not to do from this point forward. You can avoid what you've already done because you know that it didn't work in the past, right? So this week is really all about looking to how you're talking. How are you putting your intentions out there? What is it that you're saying? The words that you're saying? And most importantly, are you believing what you're saying? Because if you're not, the universe is going to know. So you guys have a great week with that. Scorpio, when it comes to your own internal voice, it's time to take a really good look at that voice, a really good listen to that voice, and determine whether or not it's working in your favor or not. Oftentimes our internal thought process, or our internal voice, the one that pretty much responds to everything that we say or do in life, can be either negative or positive communication. And a lot of times what happens with a lot of people is when you've had a lot of people saying negative things to you, this becomes your internal voice as you own their words. We don't even realize that we're doing it. It just sort of happens. And this week it's all about identifying where you go in a negative thought process, when it happens, and stopping it, basically. Turn that around. When your internal process says, I'm sorry, but you're not good enough for that, you turn that around and say, no, actually, I'm more than good enough. I'm more than qualified to do this, and I'm going to do it, regardless of what it takes for me to get there. If you're not qualified, make yourself qualified. But for crying out loud, that little voice telling you that you're not good enough is not doing you any good. So this week, it's all about starting the process of identification with this internal chatter that's going on in your mind. It is going to make you or break you. And really, you need to sit down and ask yourself, are you ready to make it, or you want to break it again? It is ultimately your choice. But if you want to make it, I suggest you start looking in that mirror and telling yourself how beautiful you are and how wonderful you are, and not hold on to other people's prejudices anymore, because that's their opinion and you don't need those. So you guys have a great week with that. Sagittarius, this week as Saturn moves into your sign and Mars moves into T-squared position with Saturn and Jupiter and Neptune this week, you're definitely going to be feeling the frustrations. With Mars entering this aspect, the frustrations are going to be heavy for sure, unless you use Mars energy in a more positive way to motivate you to get things done. But this aspect is really going to cause some difficulties, especially when you're dealing with old patterns with others or within your relationships. If you're dealing with something that's the same old thing, you're constantly having the same old conversation with a person, you feel like you've done everything to change it and yet nothing is working, you know what? You haven't done everything yet. It does not mean that you're the only one, of course, that can change this situation. But when you have no control over anybody else, how are you going to make them make changes? You can't. So you have to make the changes within yourself. This week, it really is all about taking a look at the situation, taking yourself out of the situation, and seeing what is going on with the other person. How's the other person feeling on an internal level? Or what is their anger or their negative communication really saying about them and how they feel? Now, I'm not saying enable them because they feel poopy, of course. But what I am saying is that doing this puts you in a better understanding and takes out the need to be right and the need to have this situation fixed. It's not because you want the other person to stop doing what they're doing as much as you need the understanding of why this person is doing what they're doing. So this week, it really is all about making sure to make these positive changes in your relationship. And just because you have to make the change does not mean that you're not staying true to who you are. Absolutely not. It is actually an open road to growth for you, and you never know. Anything is possible. This could actually lead you to a place you never even thought would possibly exist. So you guys, it's time to own your power in this situation and make the changes that you've been wanting to make in these relationships. And I know you guys can do it because you're Sagittarians. So you guys have a great week with that. Capricorns, Pluto is going direct this week, and that is the good news because Pluto retrograde is really a bummer. I mean, it really just feels like a lead weight that makes it really difficult for you to make any kind of changes whatsoever. And so thankfully, Pluto's direct movement is going to make things a little bit easier when it comes to making changes, and specifically changes in yourself or old patterns within yourself. Now, T-squared, of course, with Mercury and Uranus on either side, this is going to add another layer of difficulty to it. And when the moon moves into your sign Monday through Wednesday, she's going to move into that aspect and add even another layer of difficulty to it for a couple of days there. Now, the good news is, though, she's also going to accentuate Pluto's aspects with Jupiter and Neptune, which are showing you why it's so important for you to expand in your goals and dreams, and specifically why it's so important for you to take self-criticism and throw it out the window because it's not needed at all. With this T-square causing so many little obstacles and little issues and little communication issues, that self-criticism can really get started, because if you don't handle it in the exact way that you want to, Capricorn, typical Capricorn, you're going to beat yourself up over it and do all the coulda, shoulda, woulda stuff. This week, it's time to avoid all that. That's only going to get in the way. It's not going to make you move forward and progress in your goals or dreams or career, whatever it is that you're focused on right now. So this week, it really is all about allowing the change to happen without having too much control over how the change takes place, and just letting the universe take you where it is that you need to go. You never know. It may be the place that you never dreamed of, but was actually the one thing you've always wanted. So you guys have a great week with that. Aquarius, the moon is going to come into your sign this week, Wednesday through Friday, and it's actually bringing lots and lots of good news. She's going to kick off Wednesday with a grand sextile that's all about your career, reminding you of when you first started these career goals and inviting you to take a look back on that time to see if you've made it to where you wanted to be at this time when you first came up with these goals, or do you need to put a little bit more work into it? Or even more fun, if you happen to be in this situation, did you exceed your expectations and your goals? It's always fun when you're able to do that. And the truth is that there's usually a mixture of all three. Some things you haven't quite hit on yet, some things you've exceeded your expectations on, and some things are just kind of sort of stagnant and not really moving. And that's okay. Now, as she moves into position on Thursday, she's actually in an extremely favorable position with that retrograde Mercury, helping you to clear up communication issues like it was nothing, in typical Aquarian style. Remember, of course, to listen and listen to all sides of the story, whatever that story happens to be, in order to do what Aquarians are generally known for, which is to come up with what really happened is as much as we possibly can without bringing any assumptions into it. Basically, it's going to be very helpful for you, and it's also going to be very helpful for anybody that's working with you around that time. Also, she's in a very favorable position with Uranus, reminding you that the foundations that you've built are very strong, and you can do what you need to do in the independent, sort of quirky way that you Aquarians like to do it. So with all of these wonderful things that the moon is bringing, it's really kind of like sad to even bring up this little opposition that the moon has with Venus during all of this, because it really does indicate that there's something emotional that's keeping you from your goals and dreams, especially those that are nearest and dearest to your heart. You've got all of these other beautiful aspects that are opening everything up for you. The point is, are you feeling it? I know no Aquarian wants to hear it, but we have to. Are you feeling it? Are you feeling that you deserve to move forward? If you're not, then it doesn't matter how many doors are open. You're not going to walk through them. So this week, it really is all about how you feel. If you're ready, then do it. And even if you don't feel ready, do it anyways, because this is how success is made in the first place. So you guys have a great week with that. And finally, Pisces, Neptune's opposition with Jupiter and Saturn this week is going to be joined by Mars at the end of the week, just as the moon is also joining this aspect. So we're actually adding deep emotion on top of some more emotion, on top of some aggression in there, which can be very difficult with all of these planets coming together. Now, first things first, of course, Mars is all about aggression and sometimes frustration. And when you got the moon and Neptune in conjunction in this T-square, especially towards the end of the week, it is going to be a bit heavy. It's going to feel like a really heavy weight, or it's going to feel like you're finally ready to shed off this nasty skin that you've been walking around in, and you're ready to step out into the world as the brand new you, because that's what shedding our own internal emotions and emotional ties and cutting those cords feels like. This week, it's all about shedding that skin. You don't need to have this hard, tough exterior. And it can be very difficult for a lot of Pisces, because Pisces generally aren't like this. Male and female alike. They tend to be loving and wanting to spread that love to everybody else. But it can be difficult when you've been hurt or burned in the past. And this is what makes this tough skin there. It's time to cut those cords, and it's time to allow that skin to come off and show the brand new you. Now, as the moon is, of course, in this T-squared position, she's also joining Neptune in her aspects with Pluto. And since Pluto is going direct this week, it's all about being able to make those changes. You may have felt like those changes have been almost out of reach for the last few weeks, but this week things are actually going to pop and start to move forward a little bit. So really this week is all about you. It's about whether or not you want to shed that skin and move forward. And this is what you've been wanting to do. It is difficult, of course, to shed that skin. It is painful. It's always emotionally painful, but the rewards are so much better when you do. Trust me, I guarantee it. And I like that emotional release even less than all of you Pisces do. So you guys, it's time to be brave and bold and awesome, and have a great week with that. Thanks so much for listening to the horoscopes this week. I'm Melissa Bruce, the Heavy Metal Psychic. Of course, don't forget to check out all of our stuff, all of our links, the Heavy Metal Psychic Facebook page, Drummer Dave Studio Facebook page. He's the one that puts all of these beautiful videos together. And, of course, our website, A Fairy Mother's Dream, .webs.com, for all of our readings and services and any other stuff we got going on. We are replacing this website here pretty soon though, so stick around because we'll be having that information for you in the next couple of weeks. Until next week, I hope you guys have a week that totally kicks ass this week. Get ready because we're kicking off next week with a super moon, full lunar eclipse. It's going to be fantastic and it's going to be crazy and ooh, I can hardly wait. You guys have a great one. I'll see you next week.